Have you ever wondered what ancient civilizations saw when they looked at the world around them? Hidden in the cracks of time, carved into temple walls, and painted on forgotten scrolls, there's a gallery of creatures so strange, so utterly fantastical, that they defy explanation. These aren't just animals, they're hybrids, monsters, and beings that seem to leap straight from the realm of dreams. From the serpent-headed lions of Mesopotamia to the winged bulls of Assyria, ancient art is teeming with figures that make us pause and ask, what were they trying to show us? Today, we're stepping into the shadows of history to uncover 25 of the most bizarre creatures ever depicted by our ancestors. These aren't just random doodles, they're windows into lost beliefs, fears, and perhaps even encounters with the unknown. Think about it, long before cameras or science could document the natural world, artists were the storytellers, the record keepers, and sometimes what they chose to preserve wasn't just the ordinary, it was the extraordinary. A fish with a human face, a lion with the tail of a scorpion, a bird so large it could carry off elephants. These images weren't mistakes or flights of fancy. They held meaning, whether as symbols of divine power, warnings of cosmic forces, or echoes of myths that have since faded from memory. But here's the thing: across continents and cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, these strange creatures keep appearing. Why? What threads connect them? That's the mystery we're unraveling. So let's wander together through this forgotten menagerie. Picture standing in a dimly lit tomb, your torch flickering over a wall painting of something that shouldn't exist, yet there it is, staring back at you with unblinking eyes. That's the thrill of this journey. We'll travel from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Mesoamerica, decoding the secrets behind these ancient masterpieces. Some might have been born from pure imagination, while others, well, they might make you question what really walked the earth thousands of years ago. Ready to meet these creatures face to face? Trust me, by the end, you'll never look at ancient art the same way again. The griffin is one of those creatures that feels like it was pulled straight from the wildest corners of human imagination, yet it appears again and again, carved into palace walls, painted on pottery, and woven into the oldest myths we know. With the body of a lion and the head and wings of an eagle, this hybrid wasn't just some random monster. It was a symbol of ultimate power, a bridge between earth and sky. Picture the might of the king of beasts fused with the dominion of the ruler of the air. That's the griffin. And it wasn't confined to one culture. You'll find it guarding treasures in Mesopotamian temples, perched beside Egyptian pharaohs, and soaring through Greek legends. Take the Griffin of Mycenae, for example. This stunning gold artifact, crafted over 3,000 years ago, shows the creature in intricate detail: its sharp beak, those piercing eyes, the muscular lion's body ready to pounce. It wasn't just decoration. To the people of that time, the griffin was a protector. It watched over sacred spaces, hoarded gold in mountain nests, and served as a divine messenger. In Egyptian art, griffins often appeared alongside gods, their dual nature representing the pharaoh's authority over land and sky. And then there's the Greek historian Herodotus, who wrote about griffins guarding gold mines in the far north, their fierce loyalty making them the perfect mythological sentinels. But here's what's fascinating: the griffin wasn't just a symbol. Some scholars think it might have been inspired by real fossils. In the Gobi Desert, for instance, dinosaur remains like the Protoceratops, with its beaked face and four-legged stance, could have sparked tales of eagle-lion hybrids. Whether born from bones or pure symbolism, the griffin's legacy is undeniable. It's a reminder that ancient artists didn't just record what they saw, they captured what they feared, revered, and dreamed might be lurking just beyond the edge of the known world. Now shift your gaze to the sands of Egypt, where a colossal sentinel has kept watch for millennia: the great Sphinx of Giza. This isn't just a statue, it's a masterpiece of ancient symbolism, blending the body of a lion with the serene face of a pharaoh. In Egyptian culture, the Sphinx was far more than stone. It was the embodiment of royal power and divine wisdom. The lion represented strength, the human head intelligence, together forming the ultimate guardian. Carved from a single limestone outcrop, this 4,500-year-old marvel still whispers secrets. Why was it built? Some say it honors Pharaoh Khafre, whose pyramid it guards. Others argue its alignment with the stars suggests a deeper celestial purpose. And then there's the mystery of its missing nose, vandalism, erosion, or something more enigmatic. But the Sphinx wasn't unique to Egypt. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks reimagined it as a winged creature with the body of a lion and the head of a woman, sometimes even a serpent's tail. Unlike its Egyptian counterpart, the Greek Sphinx was a harbinger of doom. Remember the myth of Oedipus? She perched outside Thebes, devouring anyone who failed to answer her riddle. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening? The answer: man wasn't just clever wordplay. It symbolized life's journey from crawling infancy to walking adulthood to the staff-aided steps of old age. The Greek Sphinx didn't guard, she tested. Fail, and you were destroyed. Solve her, and she'd throw herself to her death, proof that knowledge could topple even the fiercest monsters. What's striking is how these two versions reflect their cultures. Egypt's Sphinx was a protector, its gaze fixed on eternity. Greece's was a trickster, a reminder of fate's fragility. Yet both shared a common thread. They stood at the threshold of the unknown, challenging humanity to look deeper. Today, erosion and time have softened the great Sphinx's features, but its presence still commands awe. Underground chambers detected beneath its paws hint at undiscovered chambers, fueling theories of hidden archives or lost tombs. Meanwhile, the Greek Sphinx lives on in art and metaphor, her riddle echoing through philosophy and literature. These creatures weren't just art, they were mirrors, reflecting the deepest questions of the civilizations that created them. If the Griffin and Sphinx embodied power and wisdom, the Chimera was ancient Greece's nightmare made flesh, a monstrous fusion of lion, goat, and serpent, its very existence defying nature's order. This wasn't just a creature, it was a walking catastrophe, its breath spewing flames, its body a patchwork of predators. Ancient artists didn't just imagine the Chimera, they weaponized it, painting its terrifying form on pottery and carving it into amulets as a warning against the chaos it represented. The Chimera of Arezzo, a stunning bronze sculpture from the 5th century BCE, captures its essence perfectly. The lion's snarling head, the goat's neck erupting from its back, the serpent coiling from its tail like a living whip. Every detail was designed to unsettle, but why these three animals? The lion symbolized untamed ferocity, the goat stubborn unpredictability, and the serpent deceit together. They became the ultimate metaphor for uncontrollable disaster. In myth, the Chimera ravaged Lycia, burning villages until the hero Bellerophon, riding the winged horse Pegasus, finally slew it. This wasn't just a victory of man over monster. It was order triumphing over chaos, a theme echoed across cultures. The Chimera's depiction on Greek vases often showed it mid-battle, flames licking at Bellerophon's spear, a dramatic snapshot of the eternal struggle between civilization and primal terror. What's fascinating is how the Chimera's legacy evolved. Roman writers like Virgil reimagined it as a symbol of volcanic eruptions, fitting for a creature born of fire. Even today, the word chimera describes genetic hybrids or impossible dreams, proving how deeply this ancient monster embedded itself in our collective psyche. The Chimera of Arezzo, now housed in Florence, still mesmerizes visitors. Its hollow eyes seem to hold secrets, as if daring us to ask, what chaos might we be overlooking in our own world? Because that's the Chimera's true power. It wasn't just a story. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's oldest fear, the moment nature stops playing by the rules. Deep in the heart of Crete's legendary labyrinth, a monster waited, half man, half bull, all fury. The Minotaur wasn't just a creature of myth, it was a living nightmare, born from Queen Pasiphae's unnatural union with a bull and imprisoned by King Minos in a maze so complex no one could escape. But this wasn't just a story, it was a warning. Ancient artists captured the Minotaur's terrifying presence everywhere, from the vivid frescoes of Knossos to the intricate designs of Greek pottery. In Minoan art, you'll often see bull-headed figures leaping, dancing, almost sacred. Yet by the time Greek vase painters depicted the creature centuries later, it had transformed into something darker, a hulking brute, its human body straining against the beastly head, claws digging into the earth as if barely contained. The labyrinth itself played as much a role as the monster it held. Designed by the master craftsman Daedalus, it wasn't just a prison. It was a physical manifestation of chaos, a twisting, turning metaphor for the human mind's darkest corners. And every 9 years, Athens was forced to send 7 youths and 7 maidens as tribute fed to the Minotaur in a gruesome cycle of punishment and power. That's the key to understanding this creature's symbolism. It wasn't just about rage, it was about consequences. King Minos' arrogance in defying the gods led to the Minotaur's birth, and his cruelty in using it as a political weapon turned the beast into a symbol of tyranny's cost. Then comes Theseus, the hero who dares to enter the labyrinth, armed with nothing but a sword and a ball of thread. His victory over the Minotaur wasn't just personal, it was a turning point for Athens, breaking Crete's dominance. Greek artists loved this moment, painting it again and again on vases, freezing the instant the blade strikes. But look closer and you'll notice something strange. Sometimes the Minotaur isn't fighting. Some depictions show it slumped, almost resigned, as if it knew its fate. Was it a monster or a victim of its own nature? That duality haunts the myth. Even the name Minotaur means Bull of Minos, less a title than a branding, a reminder that the creature was as much a prisoner as those it killed. Today, archaeologists still debate whether the labyrinth was inspired by the sprawling palace of Knossos with its hundreds of interconnected rooms. And in some Minoan frescoes, bull-leaping rituals hint at a culture that revered these animals, making the Minotaur's monstrous form even more unsettling. It's as if the Greeks took an old symbol of power and twisted it into something grotesque, a reflection of their own fears about losing control, about the beast within. The Minotaur endures because it's more than a monster. It's a mirror, asking us what happens when rage is caged, when power corrupts, and whether the real labyrinth is the one we build for ourselves. Towering over the gates of ancient Assyrian palaces, the Lamassu stood as a silent sentinel, part bull, part lion, part human, and entirely awe-inspiring. This wasn't just a statue, it was a spiritual fortress carved in stone, its massive wings folded tight against its body, its bearded face radiating calm authority. To approach a Lamassu was to step into the presence of something both divine and deadly. With the muscular body of a bull or lion, the wings of an eagle, and the serene, watchful face of a king, it embodied the very essence of protection. And here's what's fascinating. From the front, it appeared to stand still, but from the side, it strode forward, a deliberate trick of perspective that made it seem alive, as if it might step off its pedestal at any moment to confront intruders. The Lamassu wasn't just decorative, it was a boundary between worlds, marking the transition from the chaotic outside to the ordered sanctity of the palace. Assyrians believed these creatures repelled evil spirits, their very presence a shield against misfortune. Carved from monolithic blocks of alabaster or limestone, they flanked doorways like living guardians, their 5 legs a stylistic choice to create that illusion of movement frozen mid-step. Imagine walking through the gates of Nineveh, the Lamassu's eyes following you, its curled beard and intricately patterned wings whispering of divine favor. These weren't passive sculptures, they were active participants in the empire's power, their inscriptions often invoking curses upon anyone who dared to face them. But the Lamassu's power went deeper than intimidation. Its human head symbolized intelligence, the bull's body strength, and the eagle's wings the reach of the gods. Together, they formed a perfect triad of attributes every ruler coveted. When King Sargon II built his palace at Dur-Sharukin, he filled it with Lamassu, each one subtly unique, some with horns denoting divinity, others with elaborate crowns echoing Assyrian royalty. Even in destruction, they commanded respect. Many were deliberately mutilated by conquerors, not out of disdain, but because their spiritual potency was feared. Today, museums like the Louvre and the British House showcase surviving Lamassu, their scars telling stories of empires risen and fallen. Yet even behind glass, they lose none of their gravity. Modern archaeologists have found traces of original paint, vibrant blues and reds, hinting at how dazzling they once were. And in their hometowns, replicas now stand where originals once did, a testament to their enduring legacy. The Lamassu wasn't just art, it was a declaration, a reminder that some boundaries aren't just physical, they're sacred, and crossing them required more than courage. It demanded permission. Among the swirling carvings of ancient Egypt's Nama palette, one creature stands out as utterly enigmatic, the Serpopard. Picture this, a sleek, powerful leopard's body stretched to impossible lengths, its neck coiling like a serpent's, its head poised with predatory grace. This wasn't a mistake or a whimsical doodle. The Serpopard was a deliberate fusion, a symbol as layered as the civilization that created it, often depicted with its long necks intertwined, sometimes bound by ropes. These creatures appeared on ceremonial palettes and temple walls, their presence hinting at a duality that fascinated the Egyptians, the tension between chaos and control. Look closely at the Nama palette, one of history's oldest political posters, carved around 3100 BCE. On one side, the Serpopard's necks form a circular basin, as if their very bodies channeled something sacred. Some scholars argue their intertwined forms represent the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, the serpent's fluidity meeting the leopard's ferocity, bound together under the pharaoh's rule. Others see them as guardians of cosmic balance, their elongated necks bridging earth and sky, much like the Griffin or Sphinx did for other cultures. But here's what's striking. Unlike those creatures, the Serpopard lacks wings or human features. Its power lies in its sheer unnaturalness, a predator stretched into something dreamlike. The Serpopard's symbolism might run even deeper. In Egyptian mythology, serpents were creatures of chaos. Think of Apep, the great serpent threatening to swallow the sun each night. Leopards, meanwhile, were associated with strength and royalty. Their spotted pelts worn by priests and pharaohs. Combine them, and you get a being that embodies both danger and dominion. Some palettes show the Serpopard alongside scenes of hunting or conquest, suggesting it was a mascot of pharaonic power, taming the wildness of the world. Yet the ropes binding their necks complicate this. Were they subduing chaos, or was their unity itself a fragile construct? Then there's the mystery of its disappearance. After the predynastic period, the Serpopard vanishes from Egyptian art almost entirely. No towering statues, no temple reliefs. Did its meaning become obsolete, or was it too tied to an older, forgotten ideology? Modern artists and writers have tried to resurrect it, reimagining the Serpopard in fantasy literature as a creature of lost wisdom. But in its original context, it remains a fleeting glimpse into a time when symbols weren't just decorative. They were active participants in the stories of power, order, and the delicate line between the natural and the divine. The Serpopard's legacy whispers a question. What happens when you stretch the familiar until it becomes something new? Perhaps that's the essence of ancient art, taking the known world and bending it just enough to reveal the magic hidden in plain sight. The Kraken wasn't born from pure myth. It erupted from the darkest depths of human fear, a shadow lurking beneath the waves that even the bravest sailors dared not name. Long before Scandinavian poets etched its terror into sagas or Mediterranean artists painted its tentacled wrath on pottery, This beast existed in the whispers of those who sailed too far. Picture the scene, a wooden ship battling a storm when suddenly the water grows unnaturally still. Then, a massive shape rises, its arms thicker than masts, its beak capable of splintering hulls. To ancient mariners, this wasn't just a giant squid. It was a living catastrophe, a force so beyond comprehension that the only logical explanation was the supernatural. Norse legends called it the Hafgufa, a sea mist so vast it could mimic islands, luring sailors to their doom. The Örvar Odd saga describes it as a creature that, when submerged, could drag entire ships and crews into the abyss. Medieval maps marked its territory with swirling ink, labeling uncharted waters, here be monsters, but the Kraken's roots may stretch even further back. Greek pottery from the 6th century BCE shows scenes reminiscent of cephalopod attacks. Vases depicting sailors ensnared by sinuous limbs, their faces twisted in terror. Could these be early encounters with real giant squid, distorted by time and fear? Consider the account of Aristotle, who wrote of Teuthos, colossal squid whose eyes glowed like lanterns in the deep. Or Pliny the Elder's Natural History, which described a polyp so massive it crushed fishing boats. These weren't fantasy, they were attempts to explain the unexplainable. A giant squid surfacing near a vessel would have been incomprehensible to ancient observers. Its alien form, its sheer size, the way its arms seemed to move with a mind of their own, no wonder it became mythologized. Even the word kraken itself likely derives from the Old Norse krak, meaning something twisted or unnatural. What's fascinating is how the kraken evolved across cultures. In Norway, it was a beast of destruction. In Mediterranean lore, it became almost elemental, a force of nature as indifferent as a storm. Artists struggled to depict it. Some medieval manuscripts show it as a hybrid of crab and serpent, while Renaissance maps gave it the face of a demon. The disconnect between myth and reality persisted until the 19th century, when a fully intact giant squid washed ashore in Denmark, proving these creatures weren't just stories. Yet even then, the Kraken's legend overshadowed science. Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea immortalized it as a symbol of the ocean's untamed mystery, a role it still holds today. Perhaps the Kraken's enduring power lies in what it represents, the vast unknown. For ancient sailors, the sea was the last great frontier, a place where reality blurred into nightmare. Every strange wave, every tangled net could be the Kraken stirring. Modern deep-sea explorers still speak of that same primal awe when they encounter giant squid, proof that some fears transcend time. The Kraken wasn't just a monster, it was humanity's first glimpse into the abyss, a reminder that the deepest waters hide secrets we may never fully understand. Few creatures struck terror into the hearts of medieval Europeans quite like the basilisk, a serpent so venomous, its very glance could wither crops, crack stone, and stop a man's heart mid-beat. This wasn't just a snake, it was the unholy fusion of reptile and rooster, crowned with a white spot like a diadem, earning its title as the King of Serpents. Ancient texts describe it as born from a yolkless egg, hatched by a toad under the heat of a dog star, a recipe so unnatural it could only produce monstrosity. Artists struggled to capture its essence, often depicting it as a winged serpent with the comb and wattles of a rooster, its eyes radiating malevolence even in pigment and stone. The basilisk's mythos spread like its alleged breath, a miasma of death. Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder was among the first to document its horrors, claiming it could kill birds in flight simply by looking at them. By the Middle Ages, its legend had mutated into something even darker. Bestiaries warned that its reflection in a mirror could turn the weapon against its wielder, and that only the weasel, a creature as foul-smelling as the basilisk was foul-natured, could survive its gaze long enough to tear it apart. Churches carved its likeness into choir stalls as a symbol of sin's corrosive power, while alchemists bottled its blood, actually mercury, in vials, believing it held the secret to transmuting base metals into gold. What makes the basilisk unique among mythical creatures is its duality, both animal and abstraction. In some tales, it's a literal monster lurking in wells or beneath castles. In others, it's a metaphor for tyranny, its gaze mirroring the oppressive weight of unjust rule. The Swiss city of Basel even adopted it as a mascot, not out of admiration, but as a ward against evil, a reminder that naming your fear could rob it of power. Shakespeare weaponized its image in Richard III, comparing the usurper's rise to the basilisk's lethal ascent. Yet the most fascinating twist lies in its possible real-world origins. Historians speculate that descriptions of the basilisk might have been inspired by encounters with cobras, their hoods mistaken for crowns, their deadly spit exaggerated into petrifying vision. Or perhaps the myth grew from miners stumbling upon lethal pockets of subterranean gas, attributing the sudden deaths to an invisible serpent's breath. Whatever the truth, the basilisk endures as a testament to humanity's instinct to mythologize what it cannot explain. Even today, basilisk lingers in our lexicon, from the venomous gaze of fictional villains to the haunting thought experiment of the basilisk eye, a digital entity so advanced merely knowing its parameters might compel obedience. The ancients feared a creature that could kill with a look. In a way, they weren't wrong, they just foresaw the power of ideas. From the ashes of its own demise, the phoenix rises a blaze of crimson and gold feathers igniting the sky as it completes the most miraculous act in nature, its own rebirth. This wasn't just a bird, it was a celestial clockwork, a living metaphor for time itself. Ancient artists across civilizations were obsessed with capturing its essence. In Egypt, it was the Bennu, a heron-like creature perched atop the sacred Benben stone, its cry marking the dawn of creation. Greek poets like Hesiod spun tales of a firebird that lived 500 years before building a spice-laden nest and setting itself aflame, only to emerge anew. And in China, the Fenghuang soared as a symbol of harmony, its plumage blending the 5 colors of Confucian virtue. What's striking isn't just the similarity of these myths, it's how each culture molded the phoenix to reflect its deepest values. The Egyptian Bennu wasn't merely a symbol of resurrection, it was the heartbeat of the cosmos. Temple carvings at Heliopolis show it alighting on the primordial mound at the moment of creation, its wings stirring the first winds. Hieroglyphs link it to the Nile's annual flooding, a natural cycle of death and renewal mirrored in the bird's existence. Even its name echoed the verb to rise, tying it to the sun god Ra's daily rebirth. Meanwhile, in Greece, the phoenix became a lesson in transformation. Roman mosaics depict it mid-conflagration, its nest a pyre of cinnamon and myrrh, flames licking at its feathers as if purification required total surrender. Early Christian scribes later adopted this imagery, weaving the phoenix into manuscripts as proof of Christ's resurrection, a pagan symbol baptized into new meaning. Now journey east to the silk paintings of China's Han Dynasty, where the Fenghuang rules as the counterpart to the dragon. Unlike the solitary Western phoenix, this creature embodied duality, its form a fusion of male Feng and female Huang energies, its tail feathers streaming like celestial calligraphy. Emperors used its image to legitimize their rule, claiming its appearance heralded virtuous governance. A Ming Dynasty porcelain vase might show it dancing among peonies, each detail coded with meaning, the flowers for prosperity, the phoenix's flight for transcendence. Here, rebirth wasn't just about cycles, it was about balance, the moment yin and yang aligned perfectly. What unites these versions is the phoenix's refusal to conform to mortal limits. In Persian Shahnameh epics, it carries the hero Zal to safety. In Japanese kamen crests, it decorates samurai armor as a talisman against death. Even alchemists revered it, their flasks and crucibles symbolically reenacting its fiery transformation. Today, the phoenix endures in pop culture, from Harry Potter's fox to the emblem of resilience after disasters, but perhaps its true power lies in its ambiguity. Is it a bird, a concept, or a cosmic law? The answer flickers like its flames, always shifting, never extinguished. To witness the phoenix in art is to confront humanity's oldest defiance, the belief that endings are just beginnings in disguise. The manticore wasn't just a monster, it was a symphony of nightmares stitched together from humanity's deepest fears. Originating in Persian legends, this creature combined the body of a lion with the face of a man, but not just any face. Its grin stretched ear to ear, crammed with 3 rows of razor-sharp teeth, like a shark's maw grafted onto a human skull. And if that wasn't horrifying enough, its tail ended in a cluster of venomous scorpion stingers, each capable of delivering instant death. Ancient texts describe its voice as a grotesque parody of human speech, luring victims close before its claws tore them apart. Unlike the noble Griffin or wise Sphinx, the manticore had no higher purpose. It existed solely to hunt, to devour, to remind travelers that some frontiers shouldn't be crossed. One of the earliest accounts comes from the Greek physician Ctesias, who served in the Persian court around 400 BCE. His descriptions, possibly based on distorted tales of tigers, paint the manticore as an unstoppable force, its crimson fur blending into the desert at dusk. Later, Roman writers like Pliny the Elder added chilling details: its preference for human flesh, its habit of leaving clothing untouched while consuming every other part of its victims. Medieval bestiaries ran with these tales, illustrating the manticore in vivid marginalia. The Aberdeen bestiary, for instance, shows it mid-leap, its tail arched like a whip, while text warns that its venom could rot a man from the inside within seconds. What's fascinating is how rarely the manticore appears in actual Persian art. Unlike Egypt's Sphinx or Mesopotamia's Lamassu, this creature thrived more in words than images, perhaps because its very description defied easy depiction. When it did surface, like in a 10th century silver plate now housed in the Hermitage Museum, the artist focused on its feline power, the human face almost an afterthought. Yet the manticore's influence spread far beyond Persia. Indian folklore adapted it as the manticore, a guardian of sacred spaces. In Europe, it became a symbol of tyranny, its man-like face representing the corruption of power. Dante even placed a manticore-like beast in Inferno, its stinger poised to punish the greedy. The manticore's legacy lingers in modern fantasy, from Borges's book of imaginary beings to role-playing games where it's a boss-level threat. But its true power lies in what it represents: the fear of the uncanny. A lion is dangerous, a scorpion deadly, but a creature that looks almost human. That's the stuff of primal terror. The manticore wasn't just a predator, it was a mirror reflecting our dread of the familiar turned monstrous. Even now, its grin haunts the edges of mythology, a reminder that some hybrids weren't meant to inspire awe, only screams. Galloping through the waves with the grace of a stallion and the power of the sea itself, the hippocampus defied the boundaries of land and water in ancient imagination. This stunning hybrid forequarters of a horse fused seamlessly with the coiling tail of a fish wasn't merely decorative. It was the living embodiment of the ocean's untamed spirit, a creature so revered that its image adorned everything from temple friezes to the prows of warships. Greek artists often depicted it with a mane of frothy waves, its equine eyes wild with the same energy that churned the seas. But this wasn't just a Greek fascination. Phoenician traders, masters of the Mediterranean, carved hippocampi into their ivory chests and dagger hilts, as if invoking its speed and fluidity to protect their voyages. The hippocampus's most sacred role was as the trusted steed of Poseidon. When the god of the sea rose from the depths, his chariot wasn't pulled by ordinary creatures. It was a team of these aquatic stallions, their tails whipping the waves into storms or calming them with a flick. A 5th century BCE wine cup now in the Louvre captures this perfectly. Poseidon mid-charge, hippocampi surging beneath him, their fish tails arcing like crescent moons. But here's what's intriguing: their presence wasn't limited to mythology. In the ruins of Roman baths across the empire, mosaics show hippocampi frolicking among dolphins, their bodies glistening with tiny blue and green tiles. These weren't just pretty scenes, they were symbolic. Water was life, and the hippocampus became its mascot, a bridge between human luxury and nature's raw power. Shipbuilders saw practical magic in the creature's form. From the Levant to Carthage, wooden hippocampi crowned the bows of vessels, their arched necks defying the wind. Sailors believed these figureheads could appease tempests, their dual nature mirroring the ship's own struggle part of the sea, yet racing to conquer it. A Phoenician galley might sport a hippocampus with inlaid mother-of-pearl scales, its eyes crafted from amber to catch the sunlight, a beacon against the horizon's uncertainty. Yet the hippocampus's legacy wasn't just about might or utility. In Etruscan tomb paintings, it appears as a psychopomp, carrying souls to the afterlife across watery realms. And on a delicate gold ring from Crete, two hippocampi face each other, forming a circle, an ancient symbol of eternity. This creature wasn't just a servant of gods or sailors, it was a guide, a promise that even the most turbulent waters could be navigated. Today, you'll spot its descendants in modern heraldry and even corporate logos, a testament to how deeply this ancient hybrid still rides the currents of our imagination. The hippocampus whispers a truth the ancients knew well. Some boundaries, like the shoreline, are meant to be danced upon, not obeyed. At the edge of the scales of judgment in the Egyptian underworld, a creature waited with jaws poised Ammit the Devourer. This wasn't just a monster, it was the ultimate divine executioner, a grotesque fusion of the Nile's most feared beasts, the head of a crocodile, the forequarters of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. Each element symbolized destruction: crocodiles lurking beneath the water's surface, lions stalking the desert's edge, hippos capsizing boats with terrifying ease. Together, they formed Ammit, whose name literally meant soul eater. But this creature wasn't some mindless predator. It served a sacred, terrifying purpose in the Hall of Maat, where souls faced their final reckoning. Picture the scene from the Book of the Dead. The deceased stands before Osiris, their heart placed on a golden scale balanced against the feather of truth. If the heart proved lighter, the soul passed into the afterlife. But if it sank with the weight of misdeeds, lying, stealing, harming others, Ammit would pounce. Tomb paintings show the moment in vivid detail. The creature's crocodilian jaws agape, lion claws digging into the floor, hippo haunches tensed to leap. There was no mercy, no second chance. The soul would cease to exist, erased from eternity. This wasn't just punishment, it was annihilation, a fate worse than death to the ancient Egyptians, who believed one's name and memory must endure to truly live. Yet Ammit's role wasn't purely punitive, it was a cosmic balancing force. By devouring unworthy souls, it purified the afterlife, ensuring only those who lived in harmony with Maat, the principle of truth and order, could dwell among the gods. Some scholars argue Ammit was less a literal monster and more a metaphor for the consequences of a life out of balance. The crocodile represented the dangers of excess, the lion unchecked aggression, the hippo chaos lurking beneath calm surfaces. Together, they warned that moral corruption would consume you as surely as Ammit's teeth. Artists took pains to make the creature unforgettable. In the Papyrus of Ani, one of the most lavish copies of the Book of the Dead, Ammit crouches beneath the scales, its patchwork body painted in lurid greens and reds, its eyes locked on the heart. Even in three-dimensional art, like the wooden funerary statues found in Thebes, its hybrid form was rendered with horrifying precision. The texture of crocodile scales blending into the lion's mane, the hippo's thick hide carved to suggest terrifying strength. What's fascinating is how Ammit's legacy evolved. Later Egyptian texts sometimes softened its image, suggesting it could be placated with spells or amulets. A few even depict it as a guardian of sorts, ensuring only the truly wicked faced oblivion. But its core symbolism remained: the universe demands accountability. Today, Ammit lingers in pop culture as a symbol of divine retribution from comics to video games. Yet its original message still resonates, a reminder that some judgments are final and some consequences cannot be outrun. The ancients didn't fear Ammit because it was monstrous. They feared it because it was just. High in the mist-shrouded mountains of Japan, where ancient cedar trees twist toward the sky, legends speak of creatures lurking between the realms of man and spirit, the Tengu. Part bird, part demon, these enigmatic beings carved their presence into temple walls and inked scrolls with equal measures of reverence and fear. With their crimson faces contorted into scowls, long noses resembling beaks, and feathered wings that could blot out the sun, Tengu were the ultimate paradox, guardians of sacred forests who delighted in leading travelers astray. Early depictions in 8th century Nihon Shoki texts described them as celestial disruptors, dropping stones from the sky or whispering lies to monks mid-meditation. Yet by the 12th century, warrior monks claimed Tengu taught them the secrets of swordsmanship, their clawed feet tracing battle stances in the dirt. This duality between chaos and wisdom makes the Tengu one of history's most fascinating hybrids. One scroll from the Kamakura period, Tengu Zoshi, captures their mischievous essence perfectly. Painted in vivid ink, it shows a flock of Tengu parodying Buddhist rituals. One waves a fan made of leaves, another wears stolen priestly robes upside down. To the medieval Japanese, this wasn't just fantasy, it was a cautionary tale. Tengu represented the danger of spiritual arrogance, punishing those who abused knowledge or power. Some stories tell of arrogant monks reincarnated as Tengu, their long noses symbolizing inflated egos, but in the same breath, Tengu were revered as Shujendo protectors. Yamabushi ascetics who climbed these mountains seeking enlightenment often wore Tengu masks during rituals, channeling the creature's wild energy to ward off evil. A 17th century woodblock print might show a Tengu towering over a village, its wings spread not in menace but in shelter, a storm incarnate turned sentinel. The Tengu's evolution didn't stop there. Edo period folklore softened their edges, recasting them as playful pranksters. In kabuki theater, a Tengu might swoop in to rescue a wrongly accused hero, its laughter echoing like wind through bamboo. Meanwhile, in rural villages, parents hung Tengu masks outside homes to scare away disease, the creature's fearsome visage now a talisman. Even their infamous noses transformed. Once a symbol of vanity, they became markers of discernment, with Tengu nose slang for someone shrewd. Modern manga and anime continue this reinvention, portraying Tengu as everything from grumpy mentors to eco-warriors defending forests from developers. Yet perhaps the most compelling aspect of the Tengu is its refusal to fit neatly into categories. Unlike Western demons or angels, it exists in the gray space between. Visit Kyoto's Kurama-dera temple today, and you'll find statues of Daitengu, the great Tengu elders, their faces frozen in stern wisdom. They're not worshipped, not feared, but respected like a force of nature that can't be tamed. The Tengu's lesson endures. Wisdom often wears a terrifying face, and the wildest spirits might just be the best teachers. After all, in a world that demands we choose sides, the Tengu reminds us that some truths take flight on wings of contradiction. Among the misty peaks of Chinese mythology, where dragons dance with clouds and phoenixes paint the sky with fire, strides a creature of quiet majesty, the Qilin. This celestial being, often called the Chinese unicorn, defies easy categorization. With the body of a deer sheathed in scales like a dragon, the tail of an ox, and hooves that tread so lightly they don't crush a single blade of grass, the Qilin embodies harmony itself. Unlike the ferocious beasts of Western lore, this was no monster to be slain. Its very presence was an omen of prosperity, a living blessing that heralded the rise of wise rulers or the birth of sages. Han Dynasty artists captured its essence in jade carvings and bronze mirrors, its form flowing with an elegance that seemed to ripple like silk in the wind. Examine a kiln from a 2,000-year-old tomb mural, and you'll notice something striking its eyes. Wide, almond-shaped, and brimming with an almost human intelligence, they gaze not with aggression but with serene omniscience. This was no mere animal, it was a bridge between heaven and earth. According to the classic of mountains and seas, an ancient Chinese text brimming with mythical creatures, the kiln appeared only during the reigns of benevolent emperors. Its voice was said to carry the 5 notes of the musical scale, a symphony of cosmic balance. When Confucius' mother conceived him, legend claims a kiln appeared bearing a jade tablet that foretold his wisdom, proof that this creature wasn't just a symbol but an active participant in destiny. The kiln's duality shines in its depictions. Ming Dynasty porcelain shows it curled peacefully beside peonies, its scaled back glazed in cobalt blue, while imperial robes embroidered with gold thread portray it amidst flames, not destructive but purifying. Unlike European unicorns, which were hunted for their horns, the kiln's antler-like crown was revered. Scholars wrote of its ability to walk on water and vanish into mist, attributes that mirrored the Taoist ideal of wu-wei effortless action. Even its violence was paradoxical. A 14th-century scroll depicts a kiln confronting a warlord. Rather than attack, it spews fragrant smoke, dissolving his sword into petals. The message was clear: true power doesn't crush, it transforms. Yet the kiln's most fascinating role was as a living omen. In 1470, during the Ming Dynasty, a giraffe brought as tribute from Africa was mistaken for a kiln, causing a sensation at court. The Yongle Emperor, believing it signified heaven's approval of his rule, commissioned paintings that blended the giraffe's spotted coat with traditional kiln traits. This cultural collision reveals how the creature adapted, absorbing new meanings while retaining its core symbolism. Today, kiln statues still guard temples, their mouths parted not in snarls, but what seems like silent laughter. They remind us that in a world obsessed with force, there's another kind of strength, one that walks softly, leaving unbroken grass in its wake. Rampaging through the folklore of southern France, the Tarasque was no ordinary dragon. It was a grotesque fusion of nightmares, a 6-legged behemoth wrapped in a spiked turtle shell, with the snarling face of a lion and a serpent's tail lashing behind it. This creature didn't just haunt riversides, it terrorized entire villages, crushing homes under its bulk and belching clouds of poison strong enough to wilt crops. Medieval artists carved its likeness into church pillars and painted it onto manuscripts, capturing every terrifying detail: the gnashing teeth, the claws like curved daggers, the shell studded with jagged protrusions that could shred flesh on contact. But what makes the Tarasque truly unforgettable isn't just its monstrous form. It's the story of how it met its match in a humble saint armed with nothing but faith and a song. Enter Saint Martha, a figure often overshadowed by her more famous sister, Mary Magdalene. According to the Golden Legend, a 13th-century collection of saints' tales, Martha arrived in the town of Tarascon to find its people barricaded indoors, terrified of the beast lurking in the nearby Rhone River. Where knights had failed with swords, Martha succeeded with serenity. She walked straight into the creature's lair, singing hymns so sweetly that the Tarasque's fury melted into confusion. Then, with a sprinkle of holy water, she slipped a leash around its neck, not to kill it, but to lead it back to the townsfolk, who promptly stoned it to death in a burst of fear and fury. The tale is immortalized in a 15th-century stained glass window at Tarascon's Collegiate Church, where Martha stands calm amid chaos, her robes untouched by the monster's flames. The Tarasque's legacy is carved in stone across Provence. At the Church of Saint Martha in Tarascon, a wooden effigy of the creature is paraded through streets during annual festivals, its once terrifying form now a symbol of communal triumph. Meanwhile, in the cloisters of the Abbey of Montmajour, capitals depict the Tarasque mid-rampage, its hybrid body a testament to medieval artistry's love of symbolic fusion, part dragon's wrath, part turtle's implacability, part lion's pride. Scholars argue these representations weren't just biblical allegories. They reflected very real fears. The Rhone's floods and marshes bred disease, its currents claimed lives. What better embodiment of nature's indiscriminate violence than a monster that was half land, half water? Yet the Tarasque story holds an unexpected twist. In some versions, after its death, the townspeople regretted their brutality, mourning the creature they'd once feared. This nuance, rare in tales of monstrous beasts, hints at a deeper lesson, that even the most savage forces can be subdued by compassion, and that fear, once conquered, often gives way to remorse. Today, the Tarasque lives on in carnival floats and children's tales, its spikes softened into whimsy, its roar reduced to a puppet's growl. But in those weathered church carvings, its original power remains, a reminder that the line between monster and martyr depends on who holds the leash. Before they were the seductive mermaids of modern legend, the sirens were something far stranger and far more terrifying. Ancient Greek artists didn't picture them as fish-tailed beauties, but as haunting hybrids with the bodies of birds and the faces of women. A 6th century BCE vase from Athens shows them exactly like this, perched on jagged rocks, their wings half spread, their lips parted in song. These weren't just monsters, they were the embodiment of irresistible temptation, their melodies so hypnotic they could lure sailors to steer their ships straight into the cliffs. Homer's Odyssey paints them as the ultimate test of willpower. Even Odysseus, lashed to his mast with wax-stuffed ears, strained against his bonds when he heard their voices promising infinite knowledge, proof that their power wasn't just in beauty, but in the promise of forbidden truth. What's fascinating is how their form evolved over centuries. Early depictions, like a terracotta relief from Boeotia, emphasize their avian nature, talons gripping stone, feathers meticulously carved. But by the Roman era, artists began blending them with sea nymphs. A mosaic from Pompeii shows sirens with scaled tails, their wings reduced to decorative frills. Some scholars argue this shift mirrored changing fears. As Greek traders mastered the Aegean, the sky became less mysterious than the deep ocean. The siren's transformation from sky to sea creature reflected humanity's shifting dread from the storms above to the abyss below. Yet one thing never changed: their lethality. A red figure vase in the British Museum captures the aftermath of a siren song, ships splintered on rocks, sailors' bodies floating in the waves. Unlike other monsters, sirens didn't attack, they invited. Their weapon was the illusion of choice. Even their name might derive from the Greek word seren, meaning to bind, hinting at how their song ensnared minds. Medieval bestiaries twisted their image further, portraying them as symbols of vanity or heresy, their melodies equated with sinful distractions, the most chilling detail. In some versions of the myth, sirens were fated to die if anyone resisted their song. When Odysseus passed unharmed, they threw themselves into the sea, a twist that reveals their fragility. They weren't just predators, they were prisoners of their own curse. Today, their legacy lingers in warnings about temptation's sweetest traps. Whether as bird women or mermaids, the siren's message remains the same. Some promises are anchors in disguise, and the most dangerous voices are the ones that tell you exactly what you want to hear. No creature in Greek myth froze hearts like Medusa the Gorgon, whose very gaze turned men to stone. But she wasn't always a monster. Early Greek poetry, like Hesiod's Theogony, describes her as one of 3 sisters, the only mortal among them, with hair of writhing vipers and a face so terrible it petrified on sight. Yet in Roman mosaics from Pompeii, she's almost tragic, eyes wide, mouth slightly parted, as if caught between a scream and a warning. What transformed her into this iconic hybrid of horror and fascination? The answer lies not just in her curse, but in how ancient cultures weaponized her image. Walk through the ruins of a Greek temple, and you'll find Medusa everywhere, carved into shields, molded onto door knockers, her visage glaring from the center of mosaics. This wasn't decorative, it was apotropaic magic, the belief that grotesque imagery could repel evil. A 5th century BCE wine cup shows Perseus holding her severed head aloft, its serpentine locks still hissing, its power undiminished even in death. The message was clear: if Medusa's own face could paralyze enemies, then her likeness might paralyze misfortune. Roman soldiers took this further, engraving her onto breastplates and standards. The Antioch mosaic, for instance, depicts her surrounded by a wheel of zodiac signs, her curse now cosmic, her influence stretching beyond mortal realms. But Medusa's duality is what makes her unforgettable. In some Athenian vases, she's almost comically grotesque, tongue lolling, eyes bulging. Yet a 1st century Roman statue in the Naples Museum softens her. Here her snakes coil like braids, her expression almost pensive. This shift hints at a deeper narrative. Was Medusa a villain or a victim? Ovid's Metamorphoses framed her as unjustly cursed by Athena after being assaulted by Poseidon, a tale that resonated in a culture grappling with power and vengeance. Later, Neoplatonists reinterpreted her as an allegory for the dangers of unchecked desire. Her stony gaze a metaphor for the soul's paralysis when consumed by lust. Her legacy endures in modern psychology, where the Medusa effect describes the instinct to freeze when confronted with trauma. But in antiquity, her power was literal. A clay Gorgonaean mask from 6th century Corinth, meant to hang over a doorway, still chills with its wild eyes and bared teeth. Whether as protector or predator, Medusa's image held a mirror to humanity's deepest fears of the female gaze, of beauty turned lethal, of the moment we become prisoners of our own reflections. Perhaps that's why, even today, her face still stops us cold. In the quiet hours between midnight and dawn, when nightmares coil like smoke around sleeping minds, the Japanese believed a peculiar guardian stirred the Baku. This wasn't just any creature. With the body of a bear, the trunk of an elephant, the tail of an ox, and the paws of a tiger, it was a patchwork of animal traits stitched together by folklore to serve one extraordinary purpose: devouring bad dreams. Unlike the terrifying hybrids we've seen so far, the Baku was a benevolent force, summoned by whispering its name 3 times into the darkness. Children clutched Baku-shaped amulets, while woodblock artists like Katsushika Hokusai immortalized its lumbering form in ukiyo-e prints, always with those kind, heavy-lidded eyes, as if it carried the weight of human fears on its rounded back. The Baku's origins trace back to Chinese mythology, where dream eaters were first mentioned in texts like the classic of mountains and seas. But Japan adopted and reinvented it, blending it with the tapir, an animal so obscure to medieval Japanese artisans that early depictions gave it tusks or hooves. By the Edo period, the Baku had become a national comfort, its image painted on bedside screens and carved into headrests. A 19th century print by Utagawa Kuniyoshi shows it crouched beside a restless sleeper, its trunk hovering just above their brow, sipping away shadows like steam from a bowl. This wasn't mere superstition, it was psychological first aid, a way to externalize and control nighttime terrors long before Freud dissected dreams. Yet the Baku had rules. Folktales warned that calling upon it too often would leave it hungry, and a famished Baku might gnaw on hopes as well as fears, leaving the summoner emotionless. This cautionary twist reveals a deeper wisdom, that even comfort has its limits. Modern Japan still honors the Baku, though its form has softened. Today's plush toys and anime versions resemble chubby, trunk-nosed teddy bears, their menace replaced by whimsy. You'll even find Baku-themed sleep aids apps that play recordings of rustling leaves or chimes, digitally replicating the creature's soothing presence. What makes the Baku extraordinary is its duality. It's both monster and guardian, a hybrid that consumes horrors without judgment. In a world filled with mythical beasts that punish or terrorize, the Baku stands apart, not as a threat, but as a reminder that even in the darkest hours, something watches over us, ready to swallow our fears whole. The next time you jolt awake from a nightmare, remember, centuries ago, someone might have whispered into the dark, trusting that a gentle, misshapen creature was listening. And maybe, just maybe, it still is. With leathery wings stretched wide and a serpent's tail lashing behind it, the wyvern carved its place into medieval Europe's imagination as the dragon's fiercer, leaner cousin. Unlike the four-legged, fire-breathing beasts of legend, this creature stalked the margins of manuscripts and castle banners on just two muscular legs, its bat-like wings serving as its front limbs. That singular detail, its bipedal stance, wasn't just an artistic choice. It marked the wyvern as something distinct, a creature of swift, savage efficiency, built for battle rather than mysticism. While traditional dragons symbolized hoarded wisdom or apocalyptic power, the wyvern became the herald of something far more immediate, the chaos of war and the creeping dread of disease. Walk through the vaulted halls of Westminster Abbey and you'll spot wyverns coiled in stone around royal tombs, their jaws clamped around shields. These weren't decorations, they were warnings. In heraldry, the wyvern often represented vengeance or merciless conquest. A 15th century roll of arms from Gloucestershire shows one emblazoned on a knight's crest, its barbed tail poised to strike a silent proclamation that its bearer would fight without quarter. Even the name wyvern whispers of violence, derived from the Old English wyver, meaning serpent or viper, but the creature's menace wasn't limited to the battlefield. During the Black Death, terrified communities painted wyverns on village walls, their sinuous forms twisting around phrases like "God's wrath flies on wings." To medieval minds, the creature's association with venom, its tail often dripping poison in bestiaries, made it a fitting emblem for plague. The wyvern's physical form evolved alongside its symbolism. Early depictions, like those in the 12th century Aberdeen bestiary, show it with a dragon's head but a more streamlined, almost avian body, emphasizing speed. By the Renaissance, artists like Albrecht Dürer exaggerated its scorpion-like tail, reinforcing its reputation as a bringer of suffering. Yet for all its ferocity, the wyvern lacked the dragon's divine ambiguity. In the Golden Legend, a collection of saints' lives, wyverns are slain by holy figures with almost routine certainty, unnatural horrors to be vanquished, not negotiated with. A stained glass window in Chartres Cathedral captures St. Michael spearing one through the throat, its wings crumpled in defeat, a stark contrast to the more nuanced dragons that sometimes represented Satan himself. What's fascinating is how the wyvern's legacy endures in plain sight. The logo of a certain popular soda brand, that's a wyvern, not a dragon, a nod to its origins in a pharmacy's medicinal syrups, where its viper-like connotations suggested potency. In Wales, the red dragon flag actually depicts a wyvern, a subtle detail lost to most modern eyes. Even J.R.R. Tolkien, a scholar of medieval lore, gave Smaug 4 legs in The Hobbit, reserving the two-legged form for lesser drakes, as if acknowledging the wyvern's place as the dragon's rougher, less noble kin. Today, fantasy games and films often reduce it to a generic monster, but history remembers the truth. The wyvern wasn't just a beast, it was a message carved into shields and scrawled on plague walls, a reminder that some dangers don't lurk in caves. They swoop from the sky, swift, cruel, and utterly without mercy. Roaring from the heart of Mesopotamian myth comes the Anzu, a creature so fearsome it wasn't just a monster, but a force of nature itself. Picture a beast with the body of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and a voice that shook the heavens like thunder. This wasn't merely a hybrid, it was the embodiment of chaos, a storm given flesh. On ancient cylinder seals, the Anzu looms large, its talons gripping mountains, its beak parted mid-screech. One such seal, now in the British Museum, shows it locked in battle with a god, its wings casting shadows like storm clouds. But the Anzu wasn't just a mindless destroyer. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, it steals the Tablet of Destinies, a divine object holding the power to control the universe, plunging the world into disarray until the hero Ninurta defeats it. This act wasn't random. The Anzu sought to upend the natural order, to wrest control from the gods themselves. What makes the Anzu fascinating is its duality. In some texts, it's a servant of the gods before its rebellion, guarding the entrance to the divine abode. Yet in others, it's a primordial force as old as the wind it commands. A fragment from the Anzu myth, dating back to the 2nd millennium BCE, describes its birth from the watery depths of the Apsu, the underworld ocean. Its very name echoes the sound of tempests, Anzu meaning heaven-knowing, a nod to its dominion over skies and secrets. When it steals the Tablet of Destinies, it doesn't just hide it. The text says it rends the heavens with its cry, a poetic touch that paints its voice as a weapon. The Anzu's physical form evolved alongside its mythos. Early Sumerian art depicts it more bird than lion, with elongated wings and a slender frame. But by the Akkadian period, it gains the lion's muscular bulk, its hybrid nature emphasizing its role as a bridge between earth and sky. A relief from the palace of Ashurnasirpal II shows it with feathers so detailed they seem to ripple, its lion's paws planted firmly as if anchoring the storm. This shift wasn't just artistic preference, it reflected changing fears. As Mesopotamian kingdoms expanded, their myths needed monsters that matched their growing understanding of nature's fury. The Anzu, with its ability to summon winds and floods, became the perfect symbol of uncontrollable power. Yet the Anzu's defeat holds deeper meaning. Ninurta doesn't just slay it, he restores the Tablet of Destinies, reaffirming cosmic order. This wasn't just a victory of good over evil, it was a metaphor for humanity's fragile grip on stability. The Anzu reminds us that some forces don't just attack, they unravel. Its legacy lingers in later myths, from the phoenix's cyclical rebirth to the thunderbirds of Native American lore. Even today, when storm clouds gather, it's hard not to imagine wings stirring the wind, a shadow of the ancient belief that chaos, like the Anzu, is always waiting to take flight. Beneath the still surfaces of Japan's rivers and ponds, a creature waits with a grin that's equal parts playful and sinister, the kappa. This wasn't just some water sprite or harmless trickster. With its turtle-like shell, webbed hands, and a beak-like mouth set in a frog's face, the kappa was a paradox, a creature that could drag children to watery graves or bow deeply in polite thanks for a gift of cucumbers. Edo period woodblock prints capture its unsettling charm perfectly. One moment it's wrestling a peasant in the reeds, its clawed fingers digging into his arms. The next, it's depicted offering a physician a medicinal herb, its bowl-shaped head indentation still glistening with water. That indentation, called the Sera, held the secret to its power and its downfall. Filled with liquid, the kappa possessed supernatural strength, but spill it and the creature would weaken, even perish. The kappa's mischief knew no bounds. Farmers blamed missing livestock on its midnight raids. Swimmers spoke of unseen hands tugging at their ankles. Parents warned children that kappas lurked near irrigation ditches, waiting to steal a mythical organ called the shirikodama, a jewel-like ball believed to reside in the human anus. Yet for all its menace, the kappa was deeply bound by etiquette. A print by Utagawa Kuniyoshi shows a kappa bowing so low its head spills water, leaving it helpless as a villager escapes. This duality, part monster, part honorable rogue, made it a favorite subject of ukiyo-e artists. Some prints even show kappas forming friendships with humans, teaching them bone-setting techniques or challenging them to sumo matches by moonlit streams. What's fascinating is how kappa lore served as ecological caution. Its obsession with cucumbers, often left as offerings to appease it, hinted at real dangers. The vegetable's shape resembled child-sized limbs, a grim reminder of drowning risks. The creature's aversion to iron and sesame mirrored folk practices to purify water. Even its hollow head carried symbolic weight, a vessel for life-giving water, echoing Shinto reverence for natural forces. By the Meiji era, kappas had softened into comic figures, their once terrifying beaks now cartoonish. But in those Edo prints, their eyes still gleam with something ancient, a reminder that every laughing myth might hide a warning, and that even the politest bow could be a predator's ruse. Off the windswept coasts of Scotland and Ireland, where the sea spray blurs the line between water and sky, legends whisper of the Selkies, creatures caught between two worlds. These shape-shifting beings, seals in the ocean and humans on land, carried a haunting beauty in both forms. Unlike other mythical hybrids, Selkies weren't monsters or gods, but tragic figures tangled in bittersweet love stories. Their presence in ancient art is rare but striking, carved into standing stones or painted on driftwood with delicate strokes that capture their duality. One 13th century Norse tapestry shows a Selkie mid-transformation, half its body still draped in sleek grey pelt while human fingers emerge from the flippers, reaching toward a fisherman's outstretched hand. The moment is tender, charged with longing, a fleeting second before the spell breaks. What makes Selkie tales so enduring is their emotional weight. In Orkney folklore, a fisherman might steal a Selkie's skin, forcing her to become his wife. She'd bear his children, keep his home, but her eyes would always stray to the sea. The moment she found her hidden pelt, she'd slip back into the waves without hesitation, leaving her human family behind. These stories weren't just romantic tragedies. They mirrored real coastal hardships: husbands lost at sea, wives left to mourn. A weathered Shetland ballad from the 1600s captures it perfectly. I am a man upon the land, I am a Selkie in the sea. The lyrics blur identities, suggesting Selkies weren't just magical creatures but metaphors for the sea's irresistible pull. Artistic depictions amplify this melancholy. A 15th century illuminated manuscript from the Faroe Islands shows a Selkie woman cradling a human infant, her sealed pelt draped over a nearby rock like a discarded dress. The scene is bathed in twilight blues, the mother's face etched with sorrow. She knows she must choose. Even the materials used in Selkie art carry meaning. Many carvings were made from driftwood, a medium shaped by the sea itself, as if the artist wanted the very grain of the wood to whisper of salt and tides. But Selkie stories also held warnings. Norse runestones near fishing villages sometimes bore Selkie imagery alongside phrases like, "Beware the seal who sings." These weren't mere decorations, they served as cautionary symbols. Sailors spoke of Selkie songs luring men into treacherous waters, their voices blending with the crash of waves. A 17th century Danish woodcut depicts a Selkie perched on a rocky outcrop, her human form bathed in moonlight, her mouth open in a wordless cry. The surrounding waves twist into grasping hands, a visual echo of the sea's hunger. Today, Selkies endure as symbols of freedom and sacrifice. Modern retellings frame them as feminist icons, women reclaiming autonomy by returning to the sea. Yet in their oldest portrayals, there's something more complex, neither fully wild nor tame, forever torn between love and instinct. Stand on a Hebridean shore at dusk, and you might understand why these myths persist. When the light glints just right on the waves, it's easy to imagine a dark shape bobbing beyond the breakers, watching, waiting, not quite beast, not quite human, but something infinitely more haunting. In the shadowy canals of Tenochtitlan, where sunlight fractured into ripples on the water's surface, the Aztecs whispered of a creature that lurked just beneath, the Ahuizotl. This wasn't some ordinary water beast. Imagine a dog's sleek body, but with glossy, otter-like fur, claws that could anchor it to the slickest stone, and a tail ending not in fur or fin, but in a grotesque five-fingered hand. The Florentine Codex, a 16th century encyclopedia of Aztec life, describes it in chilling detail, a predator that didn't just drown its victims but curated them. It would snatch swimmers, fishermen, even children playing too close to the water's edge, dragging them into the depths with that unnatural hand tail. But here's what's truly unsettling. It wasn't interested in flesh. The Ahuizotl craved something far more specific: eyes, teeth, and nails. Survivors, rare as they were, claimed it would pluck these from its victims before discarding the bodies, leaving them eerily intact but hollowed of these prized parts. The Ahuizotl's hunting methods were as calculated as they were cruel. According to the codex, it mimicked distress sounds, a crying baby, a drowning comrade, to lure rescuers within reach. Once its hand-tail clamped onto flesh, resistance was futile. A mural from the Templo Maya shows the moment of attack. The creature's body arched like a spring, its human-like fingers splayed wide, muscles coiled to yank its prey under. Yet the Ahuizotl wasn't mindlessly violent. It served the rain god Tlaloc, collecting offerings for his underwater paradise. Victims weren't random, they were chosen, their sacrifices ensuring fertile rains and abundant harvests. This duality, monster and divine servant, made it uniquely terrifying. Dying by Ahuizotl wasn't just tragedy, it was destiny, a grim honor wrapped in teeth and claws. Artists took pains to emphasize its unnatural anatomy. In the codex, its tail hand is often exaggerated, fingers elongated like a spider's legs, the nails sharpened to points. Some depictions show it mid-meal, clutching an eyeball between those fingers like a grotesque jewel. Yet for all its horror, the Ahuizotl wasn't invincible. Folklore hints that it feared Jaguar's earthly echoes of Tezcatlipoca, the god of night, and could be repelled by mirrors or shiny objects, tools that reflected its own predatory gaze back upon itself. Modern scholars debate whether the Ahuizotl was pure myth or based on real encounters, perhaps with giant otters or even displaced primates. But its legacy lingers in Mexico's waterways, where parents still warn children not to linger too long at the water's edge. Because sometimes the ripples aren't just the wind, sometimes they're fingers breaking the surface, reaching high above the Mississippi River, where limestone cliffs rise like ancient sentinels. The Piasa once glared down with eyes of fire, at least according to the Illiniwek tribes who first painted its terrifying form onto stone. This wasn't just a cave painting, it was a warning, a towering hybrid of nightmares with the horns of a stag, the wings of a dragon, and the razor-tipped tail of a scorpion. French explorer Jacques Marquette documented it in 1673, describing the mural as large as a calf, with antlers like a deer, red eyes, and a face almost human. But what's chilling isn't just its appearance, it's the story behind it. The Piasa, whose name translates to the bird that devours men, was said to swoop down from its perch to snatch villagers, carrying them back to its cliffside lair to feast. The original painting, long lost to erosion and time, was recreated in the 19th century based on Marquette's notes, yet the debate over its origins still rages. Some scholars argue it was inspired by real animals, perhaps a distorted memory of large raptors like golden eagles, their talons capable of carrying off small prey. Others see traces of ancient Central American influences, pointing to similar winged creatures in Maya and Aztec art, suggesting trade routes carried the myth upriver. But the most compelling theory ties the Piasa to fossil finds. The cliffs where it was painted are rich in Devonian-era fossils, including winged creatures like pterosaurs. Could the antlers actually be the elongated jaws of a prehistoric fish, misinterpreted by generations of storytellers? What makes the Piasa unique is its role as both monster and cultural touchstone. Unlike European dragons, which symbolized greed or sin, the Piasa served a communal purpose. Its mural was a boundary marker, warning rival tribes away from Illiniwek hunting grounds. Later, settlers adapted its legend, blending it with tales of giant thunderbirds or even misremembered mastodon bones. Today, a modern interpretation of the creature looms over Alton, Illinois, repainted in vivid colors, its wings spread as if frozen mid-descent. But the original Piasa's power wasn't in its teeth or claws, it was in its mystery. a reminder that some legends aren't just stories, they're shadows cast by the unknown, flickering at the edges of history, waiting to be deciphered. In the murky depths of Australia's billabongs and swamps, where the reeds whisper secrets and the water ripples with unseen movement, the bunyip lurks, a creature as elusive as the dawn mist. Aboriginal rock paintings scattered across the continent capture its shifting form, sometimes a hulking beast with a dog-like face and flippers, other times a feathered serpent with a voice like thunder rolling across the plain. This wasn't just a monster, it was a story carved into the land itself, a warning passed down through generations. The Wemba people of Victoria described it as a colossal, dark-furred creature with tusks, while the Ungarangeri of South Australia spoke of a long-necked, emu-like being that dragged victims beneath the water with its powerful tail. What unites these accounts isn't a fixed shape, but a shared dread. The bunyip was the embodiment of the unknown dangers hiding in still waters. One of the most striking depictions survives in the rock art of Arnhem Land, where ochre strokes outline a creature part crocodile, part kangaroo, its gaping maw bristling with teeth. Nearby, handprints mingle with the imagery, as if the artist sought to leave their mark alongside the thing they feared. European settlers later absorbed these tales, their journals filled with terrified accounts of unearthly howls echoing through the night. In 1847, the Geelong Advertiser even ran a piece claiming a bunyip skull had been discovered, later revealed to be a deformed calf's cranium. But the myth had already sunk its claws into colonial imagination. But the bunyip's true power lay in its role as a teacher. Aboriginal elders used its legend to keep children from wandering too close to waterholes where riptides or crocodiles waited. In this way, the creature wasn't just a predator, it was a guardian of wisdom, its stories a lifeline woven into the fabric of survival. Modern interpretations sometimes soften it into a whimsical figure, but the oldest paintings tell a darker truth. The bunyip wasn't just a cautionary tale. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's oldest fear, that beneath the surface of the familiar, something waits, watching, hungry. And perhaps that's why, even today, a lone swimmer in an Australian wetland might pause, hearing a splash, and wonder, not just about what's there, but about all the stories we've told to explain the unexplainable. From the griffin's golden wings to the bunyip's haunting howl, these 25 creatures reveal something extraordinary, a thread of wonder woven through every ancient civilization. Whether carved into temple walls or whispered around campfires, these hybrids weren't just figments of imagination. They were attempts to explain the unexplainable, to give form to storms and shadows, to the creatures that lurk just beyond the firelight. Think about it, the Sphinx's riddles, the Kraken's depths, the Phoenix's flames, each one a puzzle piece in humanity's oldest story. That story isn't about monsters. It's about us, our fears, our curiosity, our relentless need to make sense of a world brimming with mystery. What's truly remarkable is how these beings refuse to fade. The Lamassu still guards museum halls, Medusa's gaze still freezes us in art, and the Selkie's song still tugs at our hearts. They've shapeshifted through centuries, evolving from divine omens to pop culture icons, yet their power remains. Maybe it's because they're more than myths, they're mirrors. The Minotaur asks us about the labyrinths we build in our own minds. The Boku reminds us that even nightmares can be tamed. The Ahuizotl, a chilling reminder that nature's rules aren't always ours to understand. So here's the question these creatures leave us with: why do they endure? Perhaps because the unknown still beckons. Even in an age of satellites and science, we hunger for that shiver of wonder, for the sense that just maybe, something incredible still hides in the shadows. That's the magic of ancient art. It doesn't just show us what people saw, it shows us how they dreamed. Now it's your turn. Which of these creatures haunts your imagination? Have you stumbled upon a bizarre hybrid in an old temple or manuscript? Drop your favorites in the comments, because the conversation about these marvels is as timeless as the art itself. And who knows, the next great myth might be waiting in the brushstrokes of a forgotten painting, ready to leap into our collective dreams once more.